Hi, I'm Captain Paul Watson, and I'm pleased to be talking to you here on Facebook Live. And I started the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society in 1977 as an interventionist organization to stop illegal activities on the high seas. We were the subject of Animal Planet's whale wars for a number of years, and on the 22nd, Animal Planet will be featuring Watson, a documentary by Leslie Chilcott about myself. And the first question I have here is, what made you want to take part in the Watson documentary? Well, Leslie Chilcott, who did Inconvenient Truth with Al Gore, approached me on this, and I was quite impressed with Inconvenient Truth. So I said, well, yeah, that'd be a great project. She did a wonderful job in putting this together, and I think people will really like the documentary. Not just really because of me, but because of the incredible, beautiful scenes on the ocean. And also, I believe that the film will inspire people, especially young people, to understand this one thing, that each and every one of us can change the world. We can make a difference. And you just have to have three virtues, and that is passion, courage, and imagination, and you can really change things. We're seeing that with a lot of young people today who are championing various causes, and more so than probably any time in the past, and for a very good reason. Because there's a need for that right now. The future is not as rosy as we would like it to be. Everything from species diminishment to climate change, there are a lot of obstacles, and they have to be addressed. And the only way to address that is through passionate people having the courage to act, and that's what we're hoping to inspire. And the second question is, do you miss being out on the ocean with the Sea Shepherd vessels? Sea Shepherd now is an international, it's a global movement, and we are the largest marine conservation navy in the world. We have 14 ships out there. They're all over the planet. Right now, we have about 200 or so volunteers from 25 different nations that are on board those vessels. And what I'm doing right now is helping to coordinate the activities. I guess I'm more in a position of being an admiral than a captain in that respect. But we have some terrific captains and officers and really courageous crew members. Right now we have an activity going on in the Sea of Cortez. We're there for the 6th year. If it wasn't for the efforts of our crew there, the Paquita porpoise would now be extinct. And so we're there battling the cartels to stop the trade in totoaba bladders. These bladders sell in China for $100,000 a kilo. So you can see the kind of motivation there is to go after totoaba. Unfortunately, the Paquita, and there's only about 17 of them left, are the bycatch in that. So our job is to patrol the Paquita refuge, keep those nets out. And so far, we've confiscated well over 1,000 nets. It's 150,000 meters of nets all told. And we have been very successful in doing that, and it's an ongoing thing. And we're working in partnership with the Mexican Navy on that respect. And the next question is, what has been the most intriguing moment at sea? Well, that's a very difficult one to answer because there's been so many experiences over the last 42 years. I think the most exciting campaigns were certainly down in the Southern Ocean when we were confronting the Japanese whaling fleet, which I'm happy to report this year they are no longer down there. They have retreated from the Southern Ocean, and for the first time, the Southern Ocean Whale Sanctuary is truly a sanctuary, and no whales will be killed. In fact, this year is the first time that whaling in pelagic waters, that is in international waters, has been shut down. There is no whales are being killed in international waters, and that's a tremendous victory. Now, I know that a lot of people are saying, well, Japan has returned to commercial whaling. Well, the fact is they never stopped commercial whaling, and the whaling that they're doing right now is in their own territorial waters. So the only whaling nations left are Norway, Japan, and Iceland in that order, and I'm pretty confident that we'll be able to shut them down within the next few years. When I started doing what I was doing, I had one really strong ambition, that it was to eradicate whaling. And I think we've done 95% of that job, and we're going to continue to pursue it. I hope before I die that whaling has been abolished on this planet. What has been the most frightening moment at sea? That's a difficult question because I really haven't really experienced any frightening moments at sea. I've experienced frightening moments when I'm not at sea because we're up against some very ruthless politicians, we're up against very ruthless criminals. And the threats we get in doing what we're doing are significant, but you can't be deterred by those threats. What I'm really frightened of is the ocean dying. And if the ocean dies, we all die. And it's as simple as that. Since 1950, we've seen a 40% diminishment in phytoplankton populations in the world's seas. Phytoplankton provides over 70% of the oxygen that we breathe. If phytoplankton goes extinct, we all go extinct. That's how important this connection is. We have to protect the ocean, if for no other reason than to protect ourselves. And the next question, what has the whaling industry been impacted since whale wars? As I just explained on that, whaling is a dying industry, and we're hoping to see it completely die out, at least in my lifetime. There's a lot for us to learn about whales, how ecologically important they are. Every day, one blue whale defecates 3 tons of whale manure. Now, why is that significant? Because that is an incredible rich source of iron and nitrogen, which is the food for the phytoplankton. The whales are literally the farmers of the ocean. They are there to provide phytoplankton with the nutrients that they need. When whales are diminished, phytoplankton is diminished. And when phytoplankton is diminished, as I mentioned, we are diminished. The next question, outside of whaling, what are the biggest issues plaguing our oceans? The biggest issue, I think, right now is one that we're concentrating very heavily on that now is illegal and unregulated and unreported fishing, IUU fishing. And right now we have 2 ships operating off Africa, both the East Coast and the West Coast, and we're going after poachers. We've arrested 52 poaching vessels off the coast of Africa in the last year. One of our vessels, the Sam Simon, right now is up in the Bay of Biscay off of France, trying to stop the killing of dolphins by the French fishing fleets. We have another vessel in the Mediterranean that is seizing ghost nets and other illegal nets. We're working closely with various authorities there to stop poaching in the Mediterranean. We're also doing the same thing in the Caribbean and off the coast of Mexico and in the South Pacific. Poaching is a real problem and it has to be eradicated. And here's the problem. In national waters, we have partnerships with Mexico, with Peru, with Benin, with Tanzania, with Namibia, all these countries, and that's great, and we can do some good work there. But outside of the 200-mile limit, what we're looking at is the Wild West. People can do whatever they want, and unfortunately, we're the only authority out there. And people say, well, what gives you the right to intervene? Well, what gives us the right is the United Nations World Charter for Nature, which was ratified in 1986. And it states that any nation state, any individual, any organization is empowered to uphold international conservation law. And that's exactly what we're doing. Sea Shepherd is really an enforcement body, and we can be called vigilantes. I have no problem with that. But really what we're doing is upholding the law. You know, a few years ago, I was given the opportunity to address the FBI at their Quantico headquarters. They wanted me to give them a lecture, and I did so. And one of the questions one of the FBI agents said is, you know, Sea Shepherd's walking a pretty fine line when it comes to the law. And I said, yeah, well, who cares how fine it is as long as you don't cross the line? We don't cross that line. We've never been convicted of a felony. We've never caused an injury to anybody. We've never sustained any injuries. What I call what we do is aggressive nonviolence. And our most powerful weapon is the camera. That's what we go to sea with, to cameras to document these illegal activities. For example, we found a Chinese fishing fleet in the Indian Ocean using drift nets, which have been illegal since 1997. We documented it and we chased them. We chased them all the way to China. And when we got to the Chinese waters, there was 2 Chinese warships, and the fishing boat said, we're being pursued by these pirates, meaning us. And so the Navy, the Chinese Navy contacted us and said, what's going on here? I said, well, we caught these people illegally fishing. We have all the documentation. The Chinese Navy said to us, bring them in. We brought them in. They were all arrested. The captains lost their licenses, and the companies were fined. So if you can get that body of evidence, you can get countries to actually uphold their own laws, and that's what we're trying to do. So we try to work with authorities where and when we can. But if we can't, we're going to go out there and get that evidence ourselves. Next question, what is something that the average person can do to help? A lot. Watch what you eat. Watch what you consume. You know, I know this is a radical thing to say, but don't eat fish. There's simply not enough fish in the ocean to continue to feed 8 billion people on this planet. And by 2048, there won't be any fishing industry because there won't be any fish. We need a moratorium on commercial fishing for at least 50 years in order to allow the ocean to repair itself. Because even when you're eating meat, you're actually eating fish. 40% of all of the fish that's caught is converted into fish meal to be fed to chickens and to pigs and to domestic salmon and to fur farms and to cat food. 40%. So we have to stop that. We have to allow the ocean to repair itself. And it can repair itself. And the ocean is the key to addressing climate change. The ocean regulates climate and temperature. if you look at the Earth for what it really is, we're a spaceship. We're traveling around the Milky Way galaxy at this incredible speed, and every spaceship has a life support system. And that life support system provides everything we need, warmth and food, and regulates climate and temperature. And every life support system has to be run by a crew. And that crew, well, we're not crew. We're passengers. We're having a great time and amusing ourselves, but we're killing the crew. And there's only so many crew members you can kill before the machinery begins to fall apart. The phytoplankton, the worms, the bees, the trees, those are the crew members that maintain a life on spaceship Earth. And we have to learn to recognize them, live in harmony with them, and help them as much as we can. If bees disappear, we're in trouble. If trees or disappear, we're really in trouble. And if phytoplankton disappears, well, we're dead. It's as simple as that. So we have to take a more of a biocentric approach and disregard this anthropocentric sort of mentality that we've had for so long, that everything revolves around us. It doesn't. We're part of the whole. We're not independent or dominant over it. And that's the kind of attitude I think that can change. And if everybody could adopt a biocentric attitude, it would make a very significant difference. We also have to remove plastics, from our consumer base. There's going to be more plastic in the ocean than there are fish. It's something that breaks down into microplastics, which is killing incredible numbers of seabirds and fish, and is even affecting the plankton in the ocean. Phytoplankton, plastics are a poison. And it's a design mistake that should never come into being. Instead of trying to recycle plastic, we need to find alternatives to plastic, and we have to do that. We have to do that very soon. For instance, when people say, what about plastic straws? What are we going to do instead? Why is it called a straw? Because originally it was a straw. So there are all sorts of alternatives to it. Metal straws, paper straws, bamboo straws, hemp straws, doesn't matter. We don't need to use plastic. Whoops, I'm not getting a movement on my questions here. Getting little marks on that. Okay. When did you realize you had to act? Oh, that is a difficult question. I began doing what I'm doing when I was 11 years old. When I was 10, I spent the entire summer swimming with a family of beavers where I lived in eastern Canada. And the next summer, when I was 11, I went back to find my beavers and found out they were not there anymore. Trappers had taken them all during the winter, and I became very, very angry. That winter, I began to walk the trap lines, free the animals from the traps, and destroy the traps. So that's really how I started. And then in 1969, I was the youngest founding member of the Greenpeace Foundation. Then I left Greenpeace in 77 to set up the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society. So that's something that I've been really doing all my life. I really never had to make a decision on it. It just came very naturally. And I learned a lot of lessons during that time. I think one of the most significant lessons that I ever learned was in 1973. I volunteered to be a medic for the American Indian Movement's occupation at Wounded Knee. And at that occupation, we were surrounded by about 3,000 federal troops, and they were shooting at us, 20,000 rounds a night and everything. And I went to Russell Means, who was the leader of the American Indian Movement. I said, Russell, the odds are against us. We don't have any hope of winning. What are we doing here? And he said something to me that stayed with me for the rest of my life. He says, we're not concerned about the odds. We're not concerned about the winning or losing. We're here because this is the right thing to do, the right time to do it, and the right place to be doing it. And don't think about the future. Act in the present. That will define the future. And that has stayed with me forever. Another thing that I've learned over the years is that if you want to solve a seemingly impossible problem, you have to look for an impossible solution. And impossible solutions can be found if you use your imagination and you have the courage to pursue that. In 1972, the very idea that Nelson Mandela would be president of South Africa was unthinkable. It was impossible. And yet the impossible became possible. And that's the kind of thing I'm trying to encourage people to understand, is we can find impossible solutions to seemingly impossible problems. What is something that you wish was common knowledge regarding ocean conservancy? I wish what was common knowledge would be for people to understand what the ocean is. The ocean is not the sea. That's just a body of water. The ocean is a planet. This is a planet ocean. It's water in continuous circulation. Sometimes it's in the sea, sometimes it's underground, sometimes it's in the atmosphere, sometimes it's in ice, and it's sometimes in the cells of every living plant and animal. The water that's in your body right now was once in the sea, once locked in ice, once underground, once in the sky. It's continuous circulation. So we are the ocean, and that's what we should understand, that everything is interdependent. We're all part of this one thing, which is the ocean. We can't really separate ourselves from it because the ocean is life, and life is the ocean. And so this is one message I really am trying to get across to people, is this connection that we have to what this planet is really, really all about. You know, I find it incredible that we're spending billions and billions of dollars searching through the universe trying to find intelligent life, when we have life right here that we're not protecting, we're not conserving. You know, people go crazy at the possibility of finding a bacteria on, say, Titan or on Mars. And yet, look at everything that we're losing all the time. We're living right now in what is called the sixth major extinction. It's even got a name called the Anthropocene. Now, what have I learned over the studying those 5 earlier major mass extinction events is this. The last one being 65 million years ago, and we lost the dinosaurs. The other one, the most worst one, being the Permian extinction, which killed 97% of everything. And what I learned there was, you know, this isn't about saving the planet. It takes 18 to 20 million years for a full recovery from a major extinction event. So 20 million years from now, this is going to be a really nice planet. We're just not going to be here. So what this movement is really about is saving ourselves from ourselves. You know, if we want to survive, then we have to learn to live within the laws of ecology, the law of diversity, that the strength of an ecosystem lies in the diversity of species within it, the law of interdependence, that all of those species are interdependent with each other, and the law of finite resources, that there is a limit to growth, a limit to carrying capacity. And when we exceed that, we diminish diversity, we diminish interdependence, and we don't want to go there. That has no future for us. Unless we learn to live in harmony in accordance with the basic laws of ecology, we will go extinct. And you know, I have children, many of you have children, and do we want them to have a future? Then we have to take this very, very seriously. We have to understand just why we are here. I asked a fisherman in Alaska one time, I said, look, for no other reason, protect the oceans, protect the fish, so at least your children are involved in the same industry. And this guy looked at me, he says, you know what, 5 years, my mortgage is paid, and after that, I couldn't give a damn. Why does somebody like that have children? Well, it's what you do. But if we really loved our children, we would be fighting for their future, and we would do it with every fiber of our being. And that's the kind of thing that I think that we really need to address. I want my son, I want my daughter to have a future, and we're robbing them of that. There are species that were on this planet when I was born that are no longer here. Hundreds and hundreds of species. And you know the real tragedy is? We've forgotten that they've existed, that there used to be belugas in Long Island Sound. There used to be walrus on the coast of Maine. There used to be bison in New England. There used to be wolves, Labrador ducks, parakeets, pigeons, all of these species, hundreds of them, gone forever, and we've forgotten that they were ever here. Do we want in 50, 60 years ago to be saying the same thing about elephants and tigers and whales? I don't want that kind of future. So that's why we do what we do. And we have some pictures here. And this one here is back in December 7th of 2007. And that's when we launched the Steve Irwin. And the reason that we called it the Steve Irwin was Steve was supposed to join us on that voyage. And unfortunately, he died just months before that. And so I asked Harry Irwin if we could take his name down to the Southern Ocean. And she agreed, and she came down and she launched the Steve Irwin, which has been our flagship for many years. And this, of course, is a humpback whale off the coast of Queensland. We called our first campaign in 2007, we called that Operation Migaloo, and Migaloo was an albino humpback that lived off the coast of Queensland, to focus attention on that. I believe that whales are, like dolphins, probably the most intelligent species on this planet. Their brains are certainly bigger and more complex than ours. But we associate intelligence with manipulation. We're able to hand-eye coordination with tools, basically. You know, whales don't need tools. So, you know, when we really look at it from their point of view, we don't have the abilities that they have, and so we should really appreciate that kind of intelligence. In fact, all species of everything are intelligent relative to their position on this planet. And this is a portrait of Peter Hammerstedt, who joined us when he was 18 as just as a deckhand, and now he's captain and overseeing our African fleet. He's been with us for many years. The other person in that picture is Una Loyol, who's also one of our captains. And this is, over the years, so many people have come to us and have risen up through the ranks and become captains and officers on our ships. And this is our vessel, the Bob Barker, along with our vessel, the Steve Irwin, down in the Southern Ocean. This is, I believe, Operation Zero Tolerance, when we forced the Japanese whaling fleet to retreat from the Southern Ocean. I know the Bob Barker there, the one in the foreground, got beaten up quite badly, but it was well worth it for what was achieved. And just about a month and a half ago, we had the opportunity to light up the Empire State Building, and the white and blue really. This is really, to me, sending a beacon out to the ocean, turning the Empire State Building really into a lighthouse for that evening, to send a message of just how important it is for us to think about, address, and to resolve all of the problems that we have facing our oceans. So we're certainly very appreciative of the management of the Empire State Building for allowing us to send that signal. And I think that's it for now. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you tune in and watch Watson at 8 o'clock on Sunday the 22nd. And also we'll be running Whale Wars on Animal Planet throughout the week.